Hey everybody, this is Strange from HotUtils, here to talk to you about the newest component that we've added to our website, and that's mod depth. Excited to bring this to you. It's something that's been asked for a while, something that I've wanted to use myself, and I think we finally settled on a design of it that's useful to everyone. So what's the overview? The goal of this tool was to help people identify what type of mods to farm. If you've played the game for a number of years, you've built up a pretty good mod depth, but it's hard to know, well, what do I really need? What do I need to focus on? What mods should I be farming every day? And in order to run those calculations and give you a good suggestion on what to farm, you need to understand what the modding needs are. And I like to think of it similar to going food shopping. You open up your refrigerator and you see that you have half a gallon of milk. It's like, oh, that seems like a lot of milk. That should be plenty. But in reality, you have 2 kids at home and they eat cereal every day. That half a gallon of milk will be gone before tomorrow morning. But you might have half a gallon of butter, and that's absolutely more than enough for the next week. So your needs play a direct role into looking at your supply to determine what you need to shop for, what mods you need to shop for. And there's an additional component in there, which is quality too. So the quality of your mods are kind of like expiration dates on the food in your refrigerator. You might have half a gallon of butter, but if it expires tomorrow, you're going to need to buy it. Just the sheer quantity is not enough. So it's you have 3 kind of competing factors that play into the calculations to determine what you need, and loadout definitions were really important to introduce to HotUtils for us to make those calculations to give projections on what you might need. And loadout definitions, we've got some videos on that, but basically they're a way for you through HotUtils to specify how units should be modded. You can specify unit weights, set restrictions, and stat restrictions, and we use that in the playground tool and other tools, not only to help you manually mod, but also to help you mod through automation. And when we built out loadout definitions, we really wanted to add the capability to expand on that with things like mod depth suggestions. So now that we've got it, we've added a mod depth tool. We're going to show you that. I'll show you how to use it quickly early in the video, and then toward the end of the video, we'll talk about the calculation, some of the drawbacks, and some of the advantages of it. So I'm on the web page here. Let's show you how to run the analysis and get the results. You'll go ahead and go under the mods in the playground section. And if you're not familiar with playground, there's some other videos talking about all the different features. I'm not going to go over them in depth in this video. I want to focus mostly on the mod depth, but this is playground, and what you want to do is you want to load up your loadout definition. So all those settings that you have for units, weights, and restrictions, you want to pull into your session. You can do that 2 ways. If you've used playground a lot before, you probably have a loadout definition in your loadout. So you can go ahead and click File, Open Loadout, and you can find the loadout that you have made through playground and load it, and that will import all of your settings. The other way you can do it is you can browse for a global loadout definition that other people have made. And there's a couple good ones out there that you can start with that I think give really good starting points, especially for mod depth. It doesn't need to be perfect. You're just doing an analysis on your roster. So in this example, we're going to go to Template, and we're going to go to Import Loadout Definitions. And this is the library of loadout definitions that are available to you. So there's people in the community who have created definitions on how units or squads can get modded, and there's 2 that I'll point out here. The one that we're going to use in our video, Fatal created, it's one called mod depth test. So if you type that in the search field, you can find it. And I'll want to specify this should not be used to automate your loadout. It is a very strict, specific loadout just for analyzing mod depth. So you can go ahead and load this. The other one that's good is Strange's meta. If you search for that here, you can do. You can search for meta. I update this maybe once every month or two by reverse engineering the top guilds mods. They're both good. I actually think Fatals is better because he handcrafted this one. Strange's meta is just a script that runs that looks at some of the top guilds and tries to determine how they're modding things. Fatal's gone through and specified how each unit should be modded. So you go ahead and click load. This is going to take a second. And it will pull in all the modding requirements and specifications you have. Quickly, if you go ahead and click on one of these edit buttons, you can look on primaries and see how each unit is modded, and you can look at sets and see how the sets he has preferred. And you can also look at weights. You can see how he weighted all the units. The key here for the analysis is just the primaries and the sets. I'll talk more about the scoring later, but so you've pulled in the loadout definition, and then you go to the depth tab and click analyze depth. It's going to take maybe 15 to 20 seconds. What this is doing here is it's calculating what each unit's best mod is. And then when it's finished, you will get a presentation of every mod set and the score that you have based on the mods in your roster. And so let's talk a little bit about how to look at the results of the data and interpret the results. So what you see here is broken down by each type of mod set, and you have a need number and a score number. The lower the score number, the more likely you are to need to farm those type of mods, because what the analysis is doing is it's saying that your speed for the number of mods that you need is low. So if I look really at a high level, I should go out, my lowest scores in defense mods, I should probably farm defense mod sets. I'm also a little bit low in potency and tenacity, so I should focus on them. So the numbers you see here, the first number is needed, and that is roughly how many speed set mods I would need to mod every single unit in my roster that wants speed sets. And then the score is the speed secondary average of my top 412 mods. So if I click on this right here, I can get a preview of all the units that want speed mods. And I can kind of look here. These are the ideal moddings for all these units. And we talked about before what the need is, and then based on the depth. And this is just giving me an overview of what units want speed sets you can scroll through. If you don't like this, if for instance you think, oh, Night Sister, she really shouldn't be using, speed, I want her to use 3 defense sets, you can go ahead and go back to the unit screen. You can find the unit by clicking on their, finding them, clicking on the edit button, and then tweaking what sets you want them to use and what primaries you want them to use. But I think Fatal's done a really good job of coming up with a best case scenario. And then you can kind of see it broken down, the score broken down into the different categories and the different types of mods. So if I look at this right here, my score on speed isn't too bad. It's a 13. But I have a pretty low protection score. So that kind of tells me, hey, I've got to go farm some more speed protection triangles. Let's go ahead and click on that and take a look at what the data presents us. Now it's gonna show you all the units that would like to use a speed set and protection triangle, and I can review that. And then it shows me my mod depth. So it tells me how many of these bonds I need. So I'm gonna need 37 of them. it tells me how many I have, and then it tells me the average speed secondary. So that would be taking these 6 mods speed secondary and then dividing them by 37, and the average is 2. So if you actually look here, I only have 6 mods that are speed with protection triangles. The x-axis here is the speed score, and the y-axis here is the number of mods that I have. So it looks like I have one 19 speed set protection primary, and you see it goes down. So in this case, I need 37, but I only have 6, so that's why my score is so low. Let's see if we can find an example where we have more than we need. So in here, tenacity, you have the 4, so that means I need 4, and I have a score of 15, which is pretty good. So if I click on this, it gets the units that I would want, and then I click on mod def, and here I need 4, but I have 11, and my score is 15. So what the tool is doing to get the score is it's taking the fastest 4 mods and calculating their speed secondary, and it is 15. And the way it's displayed here is, I have one 18 speed mod, one 16 speed mod, and then I have quite a few 10 speed mods. And there's also coloring that's going on here. So you'll see, I'm colorblind, but I think this is green and blue. The green would be, so it needs 4. So what it's doing is it's highlighting the top 4 mods. So it starts on the right hand side, and then it highlights the number of mods to cover your need. So you can kind of see in this case, these would be used up by my need, and then these would be my leftover. And what you can use that for is kind of seeing, how far over your needs you have, so how much cushioning you have. And in this case, I have a decent number of mods over what my needs are. Let's take a look at a couple more, if we get there. This is a great example. So this would be speed set with a potency cross. In here, I need 22, but I have 25. So my need is kind of taking up quite a bit. So you see kind of like a steep drop off. So although my score is pretty good, I don't have a ton of cushion in this area for mods. So this is something I might want to look at. Whereas other mods, I might have, a big cushion to look at. So I can kind of go along and see the scores, and some scores I might choose to ignore. For instance, like these defense set is 6, but my defense sets, maybe I don't really care about speed as much. So 6 might not be a big deal. I might want to focus on offense set mods because 10 isn't great. I do want those to be fast. Then you can break it down into, what areas particularly am I weak on. I've got an 8 for the squares, which is pretty bad. If I click on this, I need 30 and I only have 19. So I need to start farming more of those to get that speed up. And then you can look at specific second or primaries here and see the scores and pinpoint that. So this is our way to kind of identify areas, and the scores are relative to your need, which is important to look at to give you an idea of where to farm. So the last thing I'll point out is that this is going to create a score for all the units in your roster, and it's going to treat them all equally. You might only care about, say, the top 100 units or something like that. You can easily have the analysis only analyze the top 100 units by going into the units here and just unchecking units that you don't want included in your analysis. You can use the include checkbox to see all the included and excluded units. And I might go down here to the very bottom and say, hey, I'm never going to use Cup, take him, take Bodhi, take Ahsoka out, and run the analysis on that. So you can do that and have it only analyze certain characters. Okay, so let's talk about scoring. The first thing is, how do we calculate need? And then how do we calculate score? So So in order to calculate need, what we do is we go through each unit and we determine what the best set is possible for that unit. What's the best sets and what's the best primary. So it could go through and say, my Supreme Leader Kylo Ren needs a speed set with a health secondary set, and for the primaries he wants a health circle, offense, cross, and crit damage, triangle, and a speed arrow. So it does that for every single unit, and then what it does is it adds 1/6 count to each slot for each set mod. I know that's a little confusing, but let's talk about Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, for instance. So he would want a speed set and a health offset. So for the square, what it would do is it would add a speed set need of 4 out of 6 for speed to the square, and 2 out of 6 for the health set to the square. Because in order to complete the speed set, you need 4 mods, and in order to complete the health set, you would need 2 mods. And then it would add 4 out of 6 to the diamond, and then it would add 4 out of 6 speed set count to the circle health primary. And then, the health set, it would add 2 out of 6 to each slot. So what this does is you end up getting kind of an average, if everything was balanced out across all your mods and all your units, of how many mods you would actually need. Now, when you're actually modding, you might not need that. So for instance, let's say your collection, let's say you want to put a lot of crit damage sets on, and you always want the crit damage sets to come with crit damage triangles. You could hypothetically get away with not having any crit damage set, crit damage triangles, by just having your offset, your crit chance, or maybe your health offset supply all those crit damage triangles. But what this tool is trying to do is it's trying to give you a balance of how much you would need. And when you have balance in your mod depth, it allows you to mod much easier, because you have flexibility in moving mods around and finding good combinations. When you rely too heavily on one set to supply a certain primary or a certain slot, that's when you can create pinch points in your modding, and that's when you can run out of mods of a certain type and get yourself in trouble. So that's how we calculate the need. So then you have a need for each slot primary set combination. And what the tool does is it takes, okay, what are my fastest, let's say I need 200 speed squares, or square slots. What are my fastest 200 speed set square slots? Average. And let's say the average is, 11 speed, so my score would be 11. Any mods slower than my top, 100, doesn't count at all. Because you're only using your top 100, so it's giving you the average speed rating of what you need. So that's how it determines the score. So it's not a perfect system. There are some drawbacks to it. Let's talk about those so that when you're analyzing the results, you can keep that in mind. The first and the biggest one is that it only picks one set per unit. The tool finds what it thinks is the best set for that unit, and it gives a count for that set primary combination. It doesn't give a count for anything else. So if you have a unit that, for instance, you could say like, hey, I want crit damage or offense set, and don't really care too much which one it has. Like maybe I prefer crit damage a little bit more, like 51 to 49%. The tool will give the count to crit damage and won't give anything to the offense set. So when the analysis runs, you might have a lot of depth in your offense sets, but not have much in your crit damage set, and it might say, hey, you're lacking depth. in crit damage, where you can get away perfectly fine with another area that you thought was just as good. So it can happen in sets like that. It can also happen in primaries, like circles are a good example. For a lot of units, it's like, well, health or protection, like I don't really care that much, but you got to pick one, so you might pick protection, over and over again, and then that might identify like, hey, you don't have enough protection circles, but in reality, you've got plenty of health circles that are just as good, so you don't really need to focus on that. So keep that in mind when you're analyzing results. But I think it does, over all the units, it kind of balances out, and when you have really low scores, it does point you in a direction. It says like, this is the area where you're kind of low. So although there are some drawbacks, I think in a whole, you're just looking, what are my gaps? What do I need to farm? What do I need to focus on? And I think it does a pretty good job of that.